wanted to start off talking a little bit about mindset and what I've been working on in terms of how I view the world. I try to look at anything and everything in my life as teaching me something. In particular, trading. That old saying, it's all about the journey and not the destination. I never really understood that. I mean, in theory, kind of, I'm like, yeah, I get it. You're trying to get somewhere and you let life go by and you don't enjoy it because you're so focused on the goal. And I do know that for any of us, when we reach the goal, it's kind of a letdown to a degree. It's like, okay, on to the next, on to the next. So I think the process of enjoying the journey is about making the most of each day along the way, embracing all the ups and downs in life, and the mind frame that you can get into to help with that is looking to yourself for what life lessons you're learning each and every day. So a lot of life is about a confirmation bias. How are you approaching life? Are you approaching it with the idea that you have good fortune, divine guidance, and you're taking action based on that? I really believe that we bring about the experiences that validate our subconscious mind. Remember, whatever message you send, your subconscious mind accepts as true. It doesn't know the difference between truth and a lie. So one of the things that's on my desk, it's very hard to see this. Always believe something wonderful is going to happen. It's been sitting here for quite a few years. And interestingly enough, this was sent to me by a company I bought a product from quite a few years ago. It was a self tanner, and I liked it so much. And I remember thinking, wow, that would be, this is probably about 5 years ago, that would be a different way to get up every morning. And so I'd look at it on my desk, and it's taken me a very long time to actually believe that something wonderful is going to happen based on kind of how my subconscious mind was programmed growing up. My parents split up when I was 13, and it wasn't some overly traumatic thing, but my mom was traumatized by it, so much so that she must have been about my age, in her 50s when this happened, but she was already starting to go downhill. So, you know how older people break their bones and they don't heal very well? That was already happening to her in her 50s. And basically, when my parents got divorced, she went into such a state of fear and panic that she never created a new life for herself, never got remarried. Now, it's been really sad, I think, and hard for me to watch, but in some ways has influenced me to think to myself, this is everything I don't want. And this is not saying my mom was a bad mom or anything like that. She always made sure we were cared for, but she lived from a place of scarcity. So I probably wouldn't have known that we had a lot less money and everything else, other than the fact that she constantly was talking about it. And so I remember from a young age just thinking, oh my gosh, I better figure this money thing out. And it's going to be a lifelong journey for me, kind of overcoming my past programming, all these sorts of things. So figuring this stuff out really comes through your awareness on this journey and paying attention to your thoughts. But the reality is your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So the whole point of life is learning to trust and respect yourself, and learning to use whatever adversity happens in your life for the greater good. So we always hear stories or read stories. Well, we don't always. I wish we did more often, but stories about people that I think I heard a story once about a man whose son was killed by some criminal, and this guy started some kind of foundation for rehabilitation of jail inmates and forgave his son's killer and like helped transform that guy's life. And you hear things like this and you're like, oh my gosh, how is that even possible? But that's a person who's living from this mindset of we're all here to contribute to the greater good in whatever capacity, and then using even extreme adversity for the greater good. And that's where I want to be. And it takes time and practice if you weren't raised up, and most of us weren't, to think that way. So change your thoughts will change your destiny. I work on this every single day, being aware of my dialogue. If it's not in alignment with where I want to go, which is abundance, joy, peace, love, happiness, all the good things, then I seek to understand why that is, what's being triggered in me, what I still need to work on. And really, that's so important in life. Seek to understand, not to judge. Like I said earlier, subconscious mind cannot take a joke. So don't say things like money is the root of all evil. I'm never going to get there. Do not. And if you do, we're all human. Okay. So of course it's somewhat difficult in the beginning in particular not to let that come back in. It'll still creep back in for me, but I'm very quick about switching my mind to higher things, to divine things, to love, peace, joy, all those things. I've disciplined myself. And if I'm really struggling with that, then I will listen to someone on YouTube that's inspirational. I'll listen to one of my favorite pastors. I'll turn on Christian music, something that reaffirms from the outside where I want to be internally. And I guess that brings me to my next point, which is if you're trying to get yourself on a higher vibrational plane and you're drinking and partying and mistreating your body and mistreating other people and gossiping and listening to all kinds of negative news, all the work you're doing internally is going to be negated by what you're doing in the outside world, and that'll just confuse your mind. So really, if you want to transform, you've got to become aware and then start to take different actions. What you consistently affirm in the physical world, in other words, will affect your vision. You are what you imagine yourself to be. So the most beautiful creative thing we have is our imagination. We see it so clearly in kids because kids are raw and innocent. They don't know any different because no one's come in and beat it out of them and told them this isn't acceptable or that isn't acceptable. A lot of us, our ability to dream and do all these things is so beaten down because we've let the outside world affect us. We got to get back to that inner creativity. That is your gift from God. It has the answers. It's part of your subconscious. We all have it. It's your job to cultivate it and let it solve your problems. I mean, one of my biggest struggles is I always want to know how I'm going to get there. How is that going to happen? And the more I'm learning and letting go, the more I'm like, that's the fun part about it. Somehow, some way this stuff happens and we don't need to control it. It comes together in its magical way in the universe, which is so cool. Don't entertain thought of scarcity, envy and jealousy are stumbling blocks. I'll catch myself at different moments. If you believe in abundance and someone else's success doesn't bring up thoughts of scarcity in your own mind, there is enough abundance to go around. And so when you start to believe that and you see other people that are successful, let that inspire you because they're no different than you are. They've maybe just worked harder on their mindset or have a stronger belief naturally in abundance than you do. So let that be an inspiration that it's possible. Look at everything in life as contributing to your higher purpose. Our reactions to other people are not about the other person, they're about us. So for me now, when I get triggered by something, I always come back to why did I have such a strong reaction? Was it I felt the need to be right and they weren't listening? Was it an insecurity thing? What's going on with me? Because if we're strong in ourselves, then what other people do, say, or react towards us really should have very little effect on how we feel, and we can love them, without judgment. So it's a process. Keep all this in mind, and hope this helps.